Hello Ian, it's nice to meet you. I think our last occasion of meeting was at a by-election.
It was very early in the morning. It was
absolutely
3-4 o'clock in the morning when we met last time, so we probably hopefully look a little bit better than we did last time.
Today I'd just like you to tell us a little bit about yourself and what's led you into this great world of politics.
Good question. How long have you got? Could be a long story. I've lived in Tamworth nearly 30 years now. My kids have grown up here. I do business here. I'm a self-employed individual who does contracting out. I currently do stuff for an accounting company, but that's kind of my own professional background. I've got a business background, 30-40 years, helping many different sized businesses. I've worked all the way along the supply chain, and for a brief period of time I actually worked in politics as well. I was the professional political agent of Kenneth Clarke, so you've probably heard of him.
Yes, I think quite a few people will have done.
And Ken's a great guy, lovely guy. So that was my introduction into politics. I did that for about 10 years and left. And I think now with current things that are happening nationally and globally, I've decided that it's time for me to try and come back into the fray and probably give a little bit of my experience in that process.
So why Tamworth?
As I said, I live here. I do business here. My kids grew up here. It's a place I've called home. I'm originally from Nottingham, but that's some time ago. I want to see the town thrive and survive and do better. It's a great town. It's got a fantastic history, culture. It's got some great pubs, award-winning pubs. There's a lot about Tamworth that is really, really good. However, parts of the town centre could definitely do with a big change, and I think there's a whole requirement to provide some enthusiasm, motivation. I think the town has drifted along for many, many years between Labour and Conservative and never really happened. And of course Tamworth isn't just the town, it's the wider constituency.
That's just what I was going to say.
Right, 80% of the constituency is rural, although the bulk of the population live in the town of Tamworth. Many years ago it used to be called South East Staffordshire when Sir David Lightbound was around, and then Brian Jenkins, the Labour Party, changed its name to Tamworth. So people, when they talk about Tamworth, they immediately think about the town, but it's a wider aspect. And I know people are using this fashionable phrase, Tamworth and the villages, which does make me smile because I don't think anybody's ever used that until particularly recently.
I think it's
come along a little
by-election,
brought that name
2023.
along. It's a catchy phrase, isn't it, that comes along. But it's a great place to live. It's got some fantastic elements to it, but like most things, it can do better.
So thinking about the whole constituency, it's about to change. We're having a little added couple of areas, aren't we?
That's right, through the Boundary Commission. They have to do that because obviously as populations change, the demographics of population, there's this sort of commission that goes around the country and readjusts boundaries to make it more equitable. I think the population of the constituency in electoral terms will be about 72,000 roughly, which is in line with what the government and the Boundary Commission require that constituencies have.
We are speaking to other political parties, and I think really what I'd like to ask you is, can you just explain a little bit about the history of Reform UK? Where does it come from and what's its future?
Its future is going to be long term. It came originally out of the Brexit party, so if you remember back to 2019, there was a big push to make sure that Brexit happened in that election. It gave Boris an 80-seat majority. Don't forget, during the Brexit campaign, 17.4 million people of the United Kingdom voted Brexit, the highest figure in any form of election ever in the history of the UK. We thought Brexit was done, and the elements would go with that. Boris and the Conservatives never delivered on that promise, and there's many, many aspects of that haven't been achieved. And it grew out of that, so we thought we're going to change from being a single issue entity to actually grow to become a proper professional political party and have a wide range of policies and ideas that are currently filling a vacuum in UK politics. The Conservatives have been around for 200 years nearly. The Labour Party have been around since the mid part of the 19th century. They have a long time to establish. And we've done more in 3 years that a lot of parties have, as a comparative, and you probably mentioned Nigel and UKIP, Nigel Farage, took Nigel nearly 20 years to achieve 13 or 14%, and we've done that in rapid rise, nearly 6 months, past 6 months. Huge changes. So there's a demand.
And of course Tamworth did vote very heavily Brexit way back, didn't they?
It did. The figure's about 66%, so 2/3 of the population, which is in line with the national average, but it's a heavily Brexit area. They call the sort of the red wall, blue wall, Tory vote, Labour vote, the traditional heartlands of the Midlands, the North. These are the people most affected and most enthusiastic about Brexit and all that Brexit can deliver. They feel let down. So we fill that vacuum.
So why should the constituents of Tamworth, and I'll mention and the villages, why should they vote Reform UK?
I think we've got at the current system we've got, it's you vote Conservative, you get Labour, you vote Labour, you get Conservative. There's no real change. I mean, you could put a credit card thickness on most of the policies between the two. The divergence is incredibly limited. So you end up, whoever you vote for, getting the same outcomes. We have the highest level of taxation, for example, since World War II. We offer a different, fresh approach, new policies. Go and look at the website, there's a whole range, and we're developing them. We have a policy team now of people actually putting more and more on the website, and you can see that. We can't release everything, because obviously prior to a general election, we don't want other parties to pick them. However, there is a broad range of detailed policies available for people to look at. So we offer a real alternative, a real difference.
And you stood in the recent by-election for Tamworth, and I know there's lots and lots of political broadcasts at the moment. You are standing again, Tamworth?
Hopefully, yes, I have to say.
And I think it's 2024.
Well,
possibly?
yes, I mean, Rishi hasn't told us when. Could be May, could be November. We have to say at this moment in time we're all prospective parliamentary candidates.
That's right, yes.
For electoral law reasons. But yes, I'm planning to stand again, hopefully, if I'm chosen. And we did fantastically well. If you think about the by-election back in October, we went from really not having a presence in the town to actually being the difference between the Conservative and Labour Party.
I was going to mention your actual number of people that voted for you. Roughly that band?
Well, again, it comes down to this. We got more votes than the Green Party, the Liberal Democrats, UKIP and local independents combined in a very, very short period of time. And it's all about brand recognition. People didn't really know who we were and what we stood for. But once we're out campaigning, people actually got to hear our policies and like our policies. And
which, of course, you're not going to share at
Not
this,
in full detail, we can talk in broader
no.
detail. Yeah, absolutely. So people like what we're actually saying. They like the mood music. We like the fact we are different and we provide an alternative. And in that short period of time, the campaign was about 5 weeks, wasn't it? I think
it wasn't very long, was it?
No, a very short campaign. And we made that difference. And the Conservative Party vote dropped by about 20,000. And the Labour Party vote, for all their effort, comparative to the 2019 general election, I think they put on 811 votes.
It was a very small...
And spent a huge amount of money. If you're going to look at the expenses for a by-election, which you can spend up to £100,000, and it wouldn't surprise me if they were close to spending that. That's a lot of money to spend on 811 votes. So we did fantastically well.
One thing I'm going to ask you is, just in your political career, or maybe anything, your other careers, what's the thing that you're most proud of?
Do you know what? I actually enjoy helping small businesses. That's the key thing. That's the thing that gets me up in the morning. I trained through that all my life. Started off as an apprentice actually in the print industry. And I worked my way all the way through. I did a range of different jobs. So I've got myself dirty and actually ran a printing press when I was younger. I ended up sort of in the offices with a suit and tie, running stuff. But actually the nuts and bolts of small and medium-sized enterprises really just give me a kick. And that's the thing I do as my day job. I talk to lots of people. And so when you give advice to people who make a business grow, they've invented something or doing something, but they don't know the wider aspects of how to run a business. They probably don't know about the finance, the accounts, sales and marketing elements. If we can point them in that direction and help their business grow, that's a real positive.
And that's where your heart lies, helping businesses. And of course Tamworth has lots of small businesses.
Without small businesses, you forget that the UK small business market employs about 16 million people. Its turnover is about £2 trillion. It's a huge amount of the economy. And unless businesses grow, thrive and are successful, they don't pay the taxes, which then pays for the services that we all want. It's great having a shopping list by politicians saying we're going to do X or Y, but if you haven't got the money to pay for it, you can't do it. So we've got to make sure that we make business profitable and employ people, and then we can generate the wealth and the revenue to do the nice things that we all want to do.
I think quite a few people these days are looking at survival more than looking at the nicer things. What's your take on the situation, the economic situation at the moment?
It is tough. I mean, the United Kingdom currently has roughly about 2.8 trillion pounds worth of debt. And if you add in liabilities, pensions and other aspects of government civil servant, it's probably getting nearer to 4. And what we're paying in interest on that is about £5,200 per second. Or put it another way, the amount of interest we're paying is equivalent to another NHS. The amount we are paying is virtually the same, or getting very close, to the amount we pay annually for the NHS. That money, in my view, would be better spent in the UK economy rather than paying interest on debts we've accrued over the past number of years.
As our prospective, I have to use that term, don't I, candidate for Reform UK, is there anything that you do differently to achieve your position that you're sitting in now?
Oh, crikey, mate. Of course you would. You can always, there's no perfect campaign, and we always learn all the way along. As I said before, we did this in a 5-week period of time. The hardest thing we have is we don't have the resources that the big parties have. The Conservative Party and the Labour Party can spend an awful lot of money.
They're a well-oiled machine.
Well-oiled. They have a good infrastructure of people helping them, lots of students, lots of business, and they can afford to send out 4 or 5 leaflets to every household. We don't have those level of resources. So we have to tailor our resources to our best outcomes. So if you don't see the level of interaction and literature that the parties, is not because we don't want to, it's because we don't have the resources. So the best way to do that is help volunteer, support, come out and campaign with us. And actually meeting people on a one-to-one basis is a great way of getting your message across. In fact, during the campaign, we did open events. We did one in the church in town with Anne Widdicombe, well supported, and people love to see Anne Widdicombe. And actually get to meet people face to face and have a conversation. We stood there in the marketplace virtually every market day and actually met people face to face and could have a conversation. People appreciate that because they always say that politicians are absent and not easily contactable. We actually went about our way to go and meet people. Plenty of videos of that.
Thank you very much for meeting me today, and thank you for sharing some of your interests and the way forward that you see politics going for Tamworth.
And thank you for interviewing me. I do appreciate it. And hopefully we can find a wider audience and people will start to get that brand recognition.
Hopefully. Thank you.
Thank you.